Danna Demetre, a former RN.
Yes, that's right. Many years.
How many years in the medical field?
Well, over 13 that I practiced as a registered nurse. Labor and delivery mostly, but quite a few different specialties. So, and lots of time in health and fitness, actually most of my life. So.
And now your life is making, it's a full-time ministry of making lemonade out of lemons, really.
Exactly. Well, God has done such an incredible work of transforming me. I really want to encourage men and women around the world to realize that He is in the business of changing us into what He originally designed us to be. So it's an encouraging message out of pain.
You bought into the lies that so many of our, I was going to say young people. It's not just young people.
It's not. You know, I started struggling with my body image and dieting, gosh, many years ago. I'm 57 and I was about 13 when I started to diet. So you look back, that's 40 some years ago. Today the pressure is even greater, and you're right. We're seeing women in their 30s and 40s starting to exhibit some eating disorder behaviors, and it's the pressure. You know, years ago we would see models and movie stars and so forth and think they were our ideal, but today, I mean, we're bombarded constantly, the magazines and the catalogs, and you know, there's just so many lies, and it's hard to not be impacted when we see it constantly. I mean, we have to turn off every television and just, you know, put blinders on to not be influenced, and yet, you know, I think there's some real truths that we can change our thinking and reinterpret and see ourselves accurately.
You know, I do understand the pressure, but sometimes you wonder, who are we trying to please?
Exactly.
You watch the old movies, and the women, the dancers, have thunder thighs like me.
Exactly.
You know,
we
like
love
that
those
was in
women.
vogue then.
Well, it was normal. See, we used to embrace normal, and we would look at women, and certainly, you know, in the world's eyes, there's certain standards for beauty, but we've become so obsessed. It used to be that there was a little more credit given to intelligence and other talents. But these days, we women feel that I think the value of beauty is so high that we're less than if we don't meet somewhere up high in those standards, and it's exhausting. And
it's an outside-in approach to life.
Exactly.
Which we're going to discover. You had to turn the tables on that one.
I totally did. And you know, by the time I was 16, as you said in the intro, I was struggling with bulimia. I was taking diet pills. But the most dangerous thing is I was believing all these lies, and they were becoming ingrained in my mind. And so,
like what lies?
You're not the lies lovable? That I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, and then the lie that I couldn't change, that I couldn't stop overeating. You know, I never had an eating issue until I started dieting. And the minute I started to diet, I started to obsess on food. I'd never been an emotional eater. I had never overeaten. I just thought I was fat, so I tried to undereat. And when I put all my focus on not eating, all I wanted to do was eat. It's such an interesting
That's human nature.
Cycle. Exactly. So I created this problem, and now the lies were not just about how I looked, but it was about my behavior. I can't stop eating. I'm out of control. I can't diet. I can't lose weight. You know, I start to have the panic attacks. I'm going crazy. I'm losing my mind. I'm dying. I felt sometimes physically like I was dying.
And just the way the whole approach to food backfired.
Exactly.
Everything you seemed to embrace to make progress took you deeper into turmoil and confusion.
That's exactly right, which I think is the case with most people. It may not go to the level that I went to and sink to those depths, but the reality is when our motives are driven by unhealthy mindsets, so often we end up in a negative spiral. And truly, we need to look up. We need to know who we are in Christ, to realize that God created us in His image, that He sees us as beautiful, not as the world does. It says man looks on the outward, but God looks at the heart. And yet we say we know that. Oh yeah, I believe that. But the truth is we don't believe it. We believe that it's just as important that you know, man or our other girlfriends think we're pretty. How big of a difference does it really make?
Well, and you had an additional pressure here because the man you were about to marry.
Yes. Yes, that man, I was about 18 years old when I met him, and he told me he would marry me if I weighed 120 pounds. Now, the thing is, he never knew that I was bulimic. He didn't know. He knew that I struggled with my weight, and he wanted me to be thinner, and he thought, you know, if he just tried to control my eating and not take me out to too good of dinners or whatever, that, you know, if I was thinner, I would be more attractive. And of course...
And how much did you weigh?
I would say at my very heaviest, I probably weighed about 150 pounds. I was a size 13 to 14. And I wasn't happy. I certainly could stand to lose a little bit of weight, but I was still healthy. I'm 5'7". I wasn't fat. I carried my weight well. But he decided he really wanted a trophy wife, and he would marry me if I weighed 120.
No nuptials till you hit that mark on the scales.
That's right. That's right. And I think because I wanted to weigh that, I thought that would make me better. I bought into it, and it only dug me deeper into my negative thinking and my unhealthy behavior. See, I ended up losing that weight by going on another cycle of diet pills. I got down to 119 pounds. I did take my scale on my honeymoon because I was obsessed. I was scared to death that I would gain the weight back, obviously. And I was married for 11 years to that man, and he never knew I was bulimic, never knew my struggles.
In your marriage?
He never knew.
That scares me.
That's the sad thing is...
It scares me that you can hide. I mean, you were binging and...
Binging. Yes, I was purging.
Help me, help me.
Binging and purging.
Purging.
Yes.
5 times a day at one point.
Sometimes I was.
And nobody knew?
No, because I hid it. I mean, I went underground. I didn't eat excessively when I was in front of people. And many people who struggle with their weight and aren't bulimic, people will think they don't eat that much. But believe me, you can pack in a lot of calories in an hour of eating junk food. I just wasn't obese because I purged. So I had the secret shame. I had the panic attacks that were following on the heels of all this unhealthy behavior. I mean, I think it was both a physiological response to taking speed and eating and, you know, binging and purging so much. There had to be some electrolyte issues, but also psychologically, I felt like a failure. I felt like I was the only person. You know, we didn't talk about it back then.
No.
Anorexia was known but not common. We didn't talk about the average girl in high school, you know, with an eating disorder. Today, it's a huge epidemic.
It's pervasive. Yeah.
So I thought I was the only one. I thought, you know, I was practicing this disgusting behavior. And so I was underground, and I didn't know the Lord. I grew up in a great home, but they did not have faith. And so here I am with these attacks that are overwhelming me, to the extent I truly do believe I'm going crazy. I was taking psych nursing at the time, and I got A's in all my classes trying to diagnose myself.
This is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And medical surgery as well.
In my med surg, I also got A's because I was trying to, you know, I thought, oh,
what's wrong with me?
I have hypoglycemia. I'd go to doctors and say, I need this test. And, you know, some of them would comply for a while. Pretty soon it was, Danna, there's nothing wrong with your body. You might want to go to the other kind of doctor. But the problem was medical doctors had no answers. Although I felt like something was wrong with my heart, something was wrong with something physiological, because I truly had moments where I felt like I couldn't breathe, like I was in the process of actually dying. And it was so scary. And of course, I'm a young nursing student, so I'm a hypochondriac to boot. And they sent me off to counselors and psychiatrists. And they really had no answers for me either. They had a very humanistic approach to it all. And so one night I had such a overwhelming panic attack. I was at the end of myself, and I felt such a darkness around me. I couldn't put it in spiritual terms because I didn't have spiritual words at that time, but I remember thinking, God, you're the only one that can help me. And I always believed there was a God. I just didn't have a personal relationship with him. And I thought, truly, God, you are the only one. And then I thought, how do I reach you? How do you hear me? I had no idea. How do you have a personal relationship with the God of the universe? And I thought of one woman. I only had one person in my entire life, and she wasn't even a close friend that I thought might know God. She went to church. I would have called her religious back then because, you know, she's my only church-oriented contact. But I called her up in desperation that night, and just in panic, I said, Tonette, do you know God? This is Danna. I'm dying. And the poor woman, she was so wonderful. She came over to see me and she said, you know, Danna, I do know God, but he also knows you. And she shared the gospel with me. And that night I prayed to receive Christ. And, you know, I had hoped that he would immediately heal me. And he did heal me over time, but he gave me hope and a future, and he gave me truth. And he walked me through the process of change. And so much of what I write about and speak about to women really came out of that journey. He taught me how to be transformed by the renewing of my mind, and ultimately healed me of panic attacks and bulimia over the course of applying his word to my life and applying healthy principles to my life. And so it's possible. I want your viewers to know change is possible.
You've just walked us through a nightmare.
Yes.
But I'm just sitting here looking at the goodness of God. If He had instantly delivered you from all the wrong thinking and all the bad habits, we would not have this thorough, and excuse all the markers, this thorough journey, which is so rich. I mean, some of the basics here, nutrition and fat management, activity and exercise, rest and regeneration, destructive lifestyle habits, all dealt with in here. But we also have a devotional journey.